I'm Alma Langlois, and today it's time for another film and character that are near and dear to my heart. Let's go back to my Catholic school bad girl days.
I got a knife here in my pocketbook, and I'm gonna cut you up after class.
I'm talking about Alice Sweet Alice, directed by Alfred Sole. I stumbled upon this movie totally by accident at my local video store as a bonny wee lassie of 12. Sometimes I think movies are just meant to find you. I was drawn in by the VHS cover art and the title. Excited that I had found a movie with a female slasher, I read the back and discovered it was about a 12-year-old girl who may or may not be murdering her entire family. And I love aspirational pictures. The film felt like it was made for me personally. Like Alice, I was also a 12-year-old Catholic schoolgirl who was lashing out with increasingly antisocial behavior and coping with parents' acrimonious divorce, a estranged father, and a sibling who demanded way more attention with horror movies and weirdness. To this day, I have a special place in my heart for Alice and this movie. 12-year-old Alice Spages is labeled a problem child, regarded by her family with a mixture of neglect and contempt. While Alice is the family's scapegoat, her younger, prettier sister Karen, however, is the family's golden child. Karen, by the way, is played by a pretty baby Brooke Shields, whose subsequent stardom would prompt 2 re-releases of the film. But anyway, while Alice's single mother Catherine and her perpetually bitchy Aunt Annie are excited preparing for Karen's first communion, Alice is ignored, lurking around abandoned warehouses in a plastic doll mask, hiding out in her apartment house basement, and tormenting her pervy, morbidly obese landlord.
What's the matter, Fatty? Stuck in a chair?
God always takes the pretty ones.
Wow, is he fat? He scares me. Him? I don't get fat. He doesn't scare me.
To make matters worse, Aunt Annie really seems to despise Alice. Although, being relentlessly bitchy is kind of her shtick.
Angela, stop eating. Haven't you had enough? Jim, help me clean up this mess. You don't need that drink.
When Karen is brutally murdered on the day of her first communion, suspicion naturally falls on Alice. Is Alice the weirdo in a rain slicker and plastic doll mask, slashing and strangling her way through her dysfunctional family? Or is there some other psycho intent on dropping the population of Paterson, New Jersey? Alice Sweet Alice is the film that comes closest to being an American giallo, although Sole claims he hadn't seen any giallo movies, citing Alfred Hitchcock, Les Diaboliques, The Bad Seed, and Don't Look Now as his major influences of the film. Much like giallo, Sole's style is the result of when a love of Hitchcock and the Italian love of Baroque collide. Alfred Sole was working as an architect when he broke into film by making a satirical adult feature, Deep Sleep, in 1972. Hoping to break into the industry, Sole made the film in his hometown Paterson, using his family, friends, and even the mayor's wife in non-sex roles. He also photographed homes of a New Jersey senator and bishop as part of the film, which may not have helped him as far as getting in hot water. Unfortunately, Alfred found himself caught up in a storm of controversy and litigation as he found himself prosecuted under antiquated local blue laws and then investigated by the FBI on federal charges. Sole was slammed with hefty legal fees, barred from filmmaking for 2 years, and excommunicated from his neighborhood Catholic church. Sole's a talented director with a distinct visual style. With the new era of 4K, you can finally see what a gorgeous and stylishly shot film this is, despite its small budget. And despite the fact that Alfred Sole fought tirelessly with his directors of photography. All 6 of them. They were either guys who would show up for a day and never again, or New York know-it-alls looking down their noses at a New Jersey regional filmmaker. And know-it-alls are poison on a low-budget film set. And to make matters worse, they're usually pretty stupid.
People like you ought to be ground up and made into dog food.
Sole's travails with Deep Sleep, his battles with DPs, and coming down with hepatitis during the shoot may have contributed to the melancholic tone of the film. Not to mention that lead actress Linda Miller as divorced mom Catherine was often difficult to deal with. Co-star Niles McMaster as her ex-husband and Alice's estranged father Dom recalls her being snobby and standoffish. Linda was the daughter of famed comedian Jackie Gleason. She was on the verge of a nervous breakdown from a bitter divorce with none other than Father Karras himself, Jason Miller. You know who Jason Miller hooked up with after divorcing Linda?
Someone mentioned my figure?
That's right! Sue Bernard, the girl you're just dying to see tour Satana karate chop in Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. The film has fantastic gloomy atmosphere. One of those movies where it's raining for at least 3/4 of the running time. Welcome to spring on the East Coast, folks. As I said before, Alice Sweet Alice was shot in Alfred Sole's hometown of Paterson, New Jersey. Also the hometown of Lou Costello of Abbott and Costello fame. The film is set in March of 1961. Paterson was once a manufacturing powerhouse known at varying times as the Silk City, the Iron City, and the Cotton City. Paterson also played an important part in the aircraft engine industry during World War II. But by the late 60s, thanks to stagflation and consolidation, Paterson was in economic decline, with urban blight settling in and many families fleeing the city. This can be felt in the crumbling buildings and abandoned warehouses that make up many of the film's locales. In the 1990s, fires destroyed much of Paterson's downtown, including some of the great architecture captured in Alice Sweet Alice. Further illustrating Paterson's decline, the film Lean on Me was based on events that took place at Paterson's East Side High School. Sole, along with his production designer John Lawless and his costume designer Elizabeth Cohen, have a great attention to period detail. And I am seriously digging Linda Meller's fabulous bouffant flip hairdo. Alice also boasts a well-written script with nuanced, complex characters written by Sole and his next-door neighbor Rosemary Ritvo, proving it's always handy to have a neighbor who's an English lit major. The characters are neither villains nor heroes, but flawed, complicated people who feel very real and sympathetic. Although, Aunt Annie's pretty much content to be a jerk.
I don't want to rush you, but Mass begins at 9.
Alice Sweet Alice explores the paradoxes of the Catholic Church. On the one hand, the church in the film does provide a source of support and community for the characters, but it's also rigid and oppressive in its preoccupation with suffering, sin, and punishment, more mournful than spiritually uplifting. This is emphasized with Sole's brooding, evocative shots of Catholic iconography. I've always loved all the Catholic iconography. Being raised Catholic gives you a flair for drama. The film is populated with grotesques, a land where Fellini meets John Waters. The most memorable, of course, being Mr. Alfonso, the landlord. Much like in Southern Gothic literature, I think they're symbolic of the more absurd, contradictory aspects of human nature, but also of man's state of original sin. And can we talk about Alfonso for a second? Mr. Alfonso is none other than Alphonse DeNoble, a local character that Alfred Sole wrote with the part in mind. By day, DeNoble was a small-time con artist disguised as a priest, and by night, a leather-clad bouncer for Paterson's only gay bar. The church also fuels the hypocrisy of the adults in the film. Its doctrine twisted to justify terrible behavior. Children pay for the sins of their parents, a cycle which will repeat indefinitely. Alice is a scapegoat because she was conceived out of wedlock, resulting in the shotgun marriage of her parents. But while her parents' actions violate their religious beliefs, the fact that this justifies mistreating a child who had no say in the matter is pretty cruel.
I mean, it's only natural that she would think that you were responsible for her predicament. You might say that, like all of us, she blames others for her troubles.
She is here because of a lot of other people.
Dom and Catherine Spages' divorce would not only have been frowned on, but a violation of the sacrament of marriage that could condemn your soul to eternal damnation. Something I would think would put further strain on the family. Since no-fault divorce had not been legalized in 1961, and the fact that Dom, now remarried, has moved far away, estranged from his daughters, I thought it implied that Dom might have had an affair, which ended the marriage. And then there's the motives of the killer, but you gotta watch the film to find that out for yourself. The hypocrisy of the characters is exemplified in the film's use of masks, distorted faces, and Karen's coveted double-faced doll, a gift given to her by Dom. The infirm and senile Monsignore would also appear to symbolize the disintegration of the community and the church's disintegration in modern times.
What are you talking about? You don't make sense.
Alice Sweet Alice takes place the year before Vatican II convened, Pope John XXIII's council to adapt church practices to an increasingly secular society, something which was extremely controversial at the time. While it explores some of the church's contradictions, the film is hardly an anti-Catholic polemic either. The script is too thoughtful for that. The film's priest, Father Tom, is the most sympathetic character in the film. He's a kind, empathetic man who cares deeply about his flock. Rather than being judgmental or hypocritical, he's understanding and jovial. He's also the one adult in the film who tries to reach out to Alice. I think Father Tom represents a true spiritual Catholicism, the kind of person who lives the morals and principles of their religion rather than twisting its teachings to serve selfish or petty motives.
Today is your last confession as a group, so I want you to think very carefully what you're going to say. But remember, you don't have to tell me everything you've done since last Sunday. After all, we don't want Sister to miss her lunch.
Alice is a complex character. She's not a psychopath, but a neglected and deeply wounded child. Resentful about being ignored or abused, her antisocial behavior is her lashing out. And she's probably learned the only attention she's going to get is bad attention anyway. Her jealousy of Karen's First Communion, an important rite of passage to a Catholic, stems from her being denied her First Communion because the timing of that coincided with the implosion of her parents' marriage. As a result, Alice remains an outsider in the church as well as her own family. Studies have shown girls whose fathers leave at the ages 8 through 11 end up entering puberty early as a biological response to their father's absence. This may have happened to Alice as well. It's implied Alice finds her puberty shameful as she conceals her first period from her mother. Or it could be that she feels, why bother telling her mother, because she feels her mother doesn't care about her anyway.
Why should you care where I go? I'm not Karen.
I want the table set immediately.
In addition to contending with her parents' divorce and her father's absence, she's also having to deal with hormonal upheaval and unwanted sexual attention of some of the creepier men around her, even though she's still a kid.
Did you notice her tits? When I went to put the tube around her, she looked up at me like she wanted me to feel her up.
Hey, the little bitch is dumping your machine.
Hey, stop that! Damn you, stop that!
There's also some implication that Alice unraveled after her parents' divorce. She wears an American Automobile Association badge on her rain slicker. If you're wondering what that is, they were those kids who would assist the school crossing guard with helping their classmates cross the street safely. So, pre-divorce, Alice might have been more of a conscientious honor student type. Either that or she beat up some other kid and stole their badge. Paula Sheppard is fantastic as Alice. A New Jersey native born in West Orange to an attorney mother and a biochemist father, she had no acting experience when Alfred Sole spotted her in a stage production at Connecticut College. She was instead training as a dancer.
A dancer?
Believe it or not, Paula turned 19 while playing 12-year-old Alice. She was blessed with big doe eyes, a baby face, and as film historian Mark Edward Hoyt puts it, barely 4'9" in church shoes. They should have teamed her up with Zelda Rubinstein for a show where they played petite psychics who run around solving mysteries. Sole said of Sheppard, she looked old, she looked young, she looked mean, she looked happy. She had a great face. After playing Alice, Sheppard moved west to finish college, but Russian-born filmmaker Slava Zuckerman, impressed by her performance, approached her to star in his new film, Sweet 16, a science fiction film about a girl who's permanently 16 due to her mad scientist father. Funding for the project fell through, but when he had trouble casting the role of unhinged drug dealer / performance artist Adrian in Liquid Sky, he remembered Sheppard. Sheppard is described by filmmakers and co-stars as very amiable and kind, but she really has a knack for playing vicious but vulnerable. Zuckerman in a 2017 interview stated that Paula was one of 4 SAG actresses they employed on the non-union production. Producers at a Hollywood screening of Liquid Sky were very interested in Miss Sheppard, but the Screen Actors Guild contacted Paula and the other actresses demanding to know why they had violated union rules by appearing in a non-union film. Paula got very angry, insisting SAG had never helped her as an actress and had done nothing for her, so why the hell should she pay them anything? After raising hell with SAG, much to the sadness of cult film fans everywhere, Paula Sheppard's acting career drew to a close. She's now living in the Pacific Northwest, married with children, and content to remain out of the public eye. The performances in Alice, Sweet Alice are terrific. Some people have criticized some of the scenes of veering into histrionics, but I grew up around, should we say, highly expressive Southern women, so I didn't notice. The entire cast is excellent, but other than Sheppard, I'll give special attention to Mildred Clinton as the rectory's housekeeper, Mrs. Trudoni. She does so much with her body language and eyes. Sole initially approached the great Geraldine Page with the role. Page loved the script but was unable to do it, so she recommended Clinton. If you think she looks familiar, she also played Al Pacino's mother in Serpico. Sole recruited most of his cast from New York theater. I'll also give a special shout out to Jane Lowry as bitchy Aunt Annie. She's the kind of person I hate in real life because she's such an unrepentant harpy, but on screen, I love her.
Annie, why'd you have to start this? I think you've gone too far.
Shut up, I know what I'm doing.
I also love the score by Stephen Lawrence that just evokes the brooding feeling of dark clouds and rainy days. Lawrence also scored Bang the Drum Slowly, but he spent a majority of his career composing music for Sesame Street. The film, originally titled Communion, initially had a distribution deal with Columbia Pictures, but that deal fell through. Allied artists picked up the film and, much to Alfred Sole's chagrin, retitled it Alice, Sweet Alice. To cash in on the newfound stardom of Brooke Shields, the film was re-released again as Holy Terror. Sole had nothing but kind words to say about Brooke and her mother, and that Brooke's mother even bent over backwards to help out on the set. Bill Lustig, who would go on to direct Maniac and Vigilante, assisted with special makeup effects on the film. Anyway, the film was long thought to be in public domain because one of the executive producer lawyers failed to register the copyright. Lawyers, am I right?
Lawyers play with people, and I'm a person.
Terrible bleached out versions were available on home video, and for a while no one knew what happened to the negative. Turns out that since Allied Artists Library was now owned by Warner Brothers, they had the lab elements sitting in their vault all along. The new Arrow Video 4K is the absolute best this film has ever looked. Lamentably, Alfred Sole only directed 2 other films after Alice, Tanya's Island and Pandemonium, but left filmmaking because he despised what I'll eloquently refer to as Hollywood bullshit. Remember what I said earlier about insufferable know-it-alls who are really, really stupid? After spending time with Hollywood people, I finally understand why Frances Farmer went crazy.
I guess there's just 2 kinds of people, Miss Sandstone. My kind of people and assholes. It's rather obvious which category you fit into. Have a nice day.
Sole spent the rest of his career as a production designer, working on TV shows like Veronica Mars and Castle, before retiring to Utah. He died in 2022. Now that I've told you everything you've ever wanted to know about Alice, Sweet Alice, join me next month for more Catholic Schoolgirls Gone Bad, the French film banned in France. I'm talking about Don't Deliver Us from Evil. And for movies too shocking, too vile, too saucy for YouTube to handle, join me on Patreon for exclusive reviews. You don't want to become another victim of the neon slime. I'm talking about Vice Squad, coming in July, so become a member and check it out. You wouldn't want to hold out on Ramrod, would you?
Yo! You want to burn, huh? You want to burn? I'm the devil, baby.
But until then, pleasant nightmares.